Welcome to the Aviation Safety Community podcast, presented by the aviation safety community. This podcast follows a series of conversations with your host, Grenville Hudson, and field experts to discuss aviation safety, the latest trends, and industry insights.
Hello, it's Grenville Hudson from the aviation safety community, and we have a very big welcome for Natalee Johnston from Assimilated Safety. Natalee has been a presenter on our safety forums in the last couple of months, and we've been looking forward to having a chance to talk to her through a podcast. Hi, Natalee, how are you going?
Hi, Grenville. Good. How are you?
Yes, not too bad, not too bad. For those people who never got to see your forum presentation, which was a great one on risk management, can you give us a little bit of a background on what you've been doing over the years?
Okay, I'll try and keep it the brief version through that. So I actually grew up in rural Western Australia, so a long way from anything water related. You wonder why I add that in, is because I then ended up at the end of my year 12 joining the Navy for a period of 24 years. It ended up. I was Australia's Royal Australian Navy's first female helicopter pilot, so that was a bit of a first and an interesting start to a career. And I had loads of jobs through defence aviation and loved my time. Like, it was really good. There were some good bits and bad bits like you have in any career, but I had some amazing opportunities. And one of those opportunities was to be the Fleet Air Arms Safety Officer. And through that, I got into accident investigation, human factors and risk management, and also really drove a passion post the Seeking accident in 2005. So that was as a result of that. And then I really wanted to start giving back to the community about all the things we learn in aviation about safety. So I got very interested, and I think it sounds strange for a lot of people, but hopefully some people on this forum would appreciate that safety kind of gets me excited and passionate, because there's so many little things we can do that can make such a big difference. And so my background then, since I've left the Navy, is to bring human factors and aviation safety into the wider professional community, but also staying in touch with within aviation as well.
That's interesting. I know you've got a passion for this, human factors and risk management, and I was just wondering if you could give us a little bit of a background on where you see that going.
I think it's one of those things that has changed and evolved over the years. So, we all first started with crew resource management and risk management back in the early 90s. Like, it came in when I was first starting my aviation career, especially risk management. And that's evolved a lot over time. Like, it was just seen as a bit of a box ticking exercise. This is common sense, this is silly, to now being an enabler and actually people functionally using it to get things done within organisations. So I still think that's got a way to evolve, because I still think there's a little bit of lack of understanding about the effectiveness of risk management, about improving and enhancing the way we just operate and do business. And I think in general, businesses outside of aviation are starting to bring risk management, even as a result of things like the Banking Royal Commission. Risk management and understanding those processes is way more involved in that financial sector than it used to be. Human factors, again, has evolved. So it's now stopped being just about, as many people know, it's not just about air crew, it's about the whole system. And they retermed it non-technical skills to try and bring everyone involved in the operation to understand all of the things that the human factors, I suppose, add to the way we do business. And I think there's a lot it can offer in the wider community, even just some things like about educating kids about how to make a good decision and what influences their decision making. Understanding those things will actually hopefully make our kids make better decisions for their future.
Yeah. And you talk a lot about creating workforce diversity through this sort of process. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah, so obviously with my background, I spent a lot of time being in the minority, and I did find during that time that I did think a bit differently to the majorities, because everyone kind of is a set mould. We're the same sort of people that go into the organisations. And I think people who have got, whether they're different ages, different cultural backgrounds, whether you're from the city or from the country, different genders and experience levels, if you start bringing diversity in, it changes the way people think it offers a different perspective because you come from problems from a different approach. So you may consider and identify risks or hazards or identify improvements that other people don't think about. So I think it's really important that we really push for a more diverse and a broader spectrum of people within the industry. I think, if you think about it from a human factors and risk management point of view, if you do that, you can find so many enhancements in that space if you have people thinking differently.
Yeah. So I guess a lot of organisations look at this sort of diversity in the workforce and from many angles, but I mean the traditional one has always been through, psychological profiling of people and all that sort of stuff. Do you think that that's still part of the whole process, or do you see this as a separate process in itself that you need to go about doing?
I think there's definitely still that psychological profile, but I think in the past it was still used, particularly in military, like obviously that's my background, it was actually used to identify people who were the same. So they conformed and fitted into that. And I think even defence at this point is actually realising that's potentially not ideal when you're trying to think about bigger problems and changing problems in the dynamic world that we're now in, with things with a pandemic, changes in the security of the region and all those sorts of things, is having people that don't think the same is almost essential to the way we do business. So, through some organisations that I'm part of, is we really try and encourage diversity to change the way we think. And I think it's really important to do that because there only is a certain talent pool around the standard mould of what people see as within aviation and even aviation safety. And if we can start to bring people in that don't fit that mould, it can really change, I think, the way people think. It also enables it to go that next step, because otherwise we'll get stagnated in the same old, it's ONTS or risk management. And if we start to stagnate, people pay less attention to it and don't, I suppose, give it enough time if it doesn't seem to progress. Whereas if we can get people thinking about it differently and using those different experiences and age and diversity, it can actually then keep it improving as we go on. So it almost enables that continuous improvement, that continual learning.
So I don't know if you could do this, but if we look at an organisation and we look at new people coming into the organisation, or even within the organisation where you're creating teams and things like that, how would you go about doing this sort of process? What would be a procedure or a process of actually doing it? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think you could look at your current organisation and see what potential experiences, age brackets, gender, cultural diversity or backgrounds that you don't have, and then maybe look to attract people from those areas, or even have a look at that skill set. In the same mind, you would look down and do a gap analysis on what skill set you don't have. You could even apply that to the human factors skill sets, like effective communication, about good situational awareness, understanding how the risk management works. And you could look to those skill sets with a thought of the diversity part of it and bring it in. So I'm not sure. I mean, obviously it does come down to making the environment in your organisation attractive to those people who are different. And that's, I think, the biggest challenge we have, is to making the organisations attractive and open, and people wanting to have it a go who might not have thought of going down that path initially. So it's a very interesting challenge, but you can then see, I think, using basic human factors principles and even a little bit of risk management behind it, is having a look at what skills are you missing and what risks does that pose to your organisation. And then you could go, if we fulfil that skill with this different thinking, then how does that impact, or what controls can we put in place to actually make that work? And it might be about, industry getting into high schools and getting into areas that they might not normally go into, to try and get that interest from that next generation. Or even as people are getting older and changing jobs, because no one these days seems to stay in a job for 24 years like I did. But people change all the time, and it's about attracting those people who are changing and coming from different experiences.
Mm. And I guess right now with the industry and the position it's in, like after COVID, we've seen a mass exodus of pilots, we've seen a mass exodus of engineers and a lot of aviation professionals. I guess we're really at this point now where we're rebuilding things, especially bigger companies are rebuilding things. This could be something that they should factor into their processes, yeah?
Yeah, I mean, that would be amazing. It would be so good for organisations to actually really have a look at that instead of just looking at only the skill set they don't have, is actually looking at what age brackets don't we have, what gender don't we have, what, backgrounds, whether that's, as I said, city, country, cultural backgrounds don't we have that could actually enhance our thinking. I mean, I'm on a board of our local Bendigo Bank, and we're very conscious of the fact that actually we're a very female heavy board, but also in an older age bracket, like 40 plus. So we've identified that we need to improve our diversity. We need to get more younger people on there in that younger age bracket, or that sort of, because they think differently to us. They understand technology way better. They dealt with things since they've been growing up in that dynamic, changing social media interaction space, and they think differently. So we need them to, part of it, to make us financially successful. And there should be no difference to that with putting engineers and pilots and, baggage handlers and anybody in the industry into that organisation. Is we need to start thinking outside our standard square box of where people fit.
And the leadership side of this, like that, you can't, I guess you'd have to start looking at your current leadership and what you have to do to change the way they think too, I guess.
I mean, it starts from there. And like anyone who's done any safety management system study, and that the command commitment or the management commitment is the one thing that will make it or break it.
Yeah.
And it's the same with anything like, with human factors and risk management, they will only work and function as effectively as management and the hierarchy support it. So again, they might be able to identify that within their organisation they're missing that, but also within our leadership thinking we're missing it. From my perspective, is I felt that in general, and this is a better generalisation, is that I was able to show possibly more empathy when I was dealing with sailors and things like that during my career than some of the guys were, just because of the old nurture and I suppose as a woman, is that's how you feel, and you're more attuned to those feelings and identifying facial expressions and that sort of stuff. Whereas some of the guys, particularly military guys, are very much brought up to be task, but then understanding that human side of it is actually way more important sometimes in getting the task done effectively. So, sorry.
So I was going to say, do you see in larger organisations, safety and HR sort of crossing over and becoming almost one and the same, maybe to a degree?
I think it will start to become like that, because there is a very disconnect now with a lot of other organisations, but they have brought, so sort of work health and safety and quality have started to join in, and a lot of organisations, they're one and the same. But to achieve effective work health and safety and effective quality management, you need the people resources to be thinking the right way, or to be able to carry out all those human factor skills that we as aviators get drummed into us throughout our training, that those skills actually contribute significantly to being able to achieve safety outcomes and achieve quality outcomes. So there should be a connection between HR and safety and quality, because if you don't have the right people fit in the HR space, you're potentially never going to achieve the other two elements.
Yeah. I've seen it in a couple of corporations now. There seems to be a bit of a crossover between the two, and interchangeability of management too. I've noticed a bit. So,
and I think from our point of view as well, like, we talk about in aviation, that just culture part of it is sometimes that's missing out of HR. They're like a hire and fire kind of that mentality with a lot of bigger organisations, particularly, instead of actually looking to, we've spent all this money training, just culture, is there a system problem? And those sort of linkages could actually potentially make things more efficient and for organisations.
And I think that's an interesting thing, because I was just thinking back to some of my experiences in the corporate world, and I remember as a manager having someone foisted onto me or pushed onto me, and I'm thinking, well, that person doesn't fit our profile or doesn't. But I think HR was the pushing it, no, not anyone else, or someone in another department who wanted to get rid of that person. So I just think, you're right. It is like that hire and fire thing, and maybe coming back to the diversity, this is where, if people just spend a bit more time thinking about it, they would find that, okay, this person might be a square peg in a round hole at the moment, but if I put them in another team or put them with other people, then it could be exactly the opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, and that different thinking sort of thing is the one where you're going to capture potentially those hazards or, the risks that come in that might have eventually led to a major accident. And they might have the courage then, because they think differently, to actually say something about it and step outside that little round hole, because they've got square edges and they're used to being outside on the edge and they're used to standing up and saying stuff. And that's what you kind of need to enhance safety and risk management in any organisation.
Yeah, no, that's really, really fascinating stuff. I was just going to say, just moving slightly off that, but I guess in the diversity side of things, I know you're very much involved with aviation, Women in Aviation International, and I thought maybe you might be able to tell us a little bit about that organisation.
Yeah, I'd love to. They are great. So it was founded by a very amazing pilot and business manager, Tammy Camilleri, who's out at Bathurst. Her and her husband Charlie run a business out there. She's an amazing pilot. She's one of our only civil female jet pilots. So she flies L-39, which is pretty exciting. But she brought in Women in Aviation International into Australia a number of years ago, because there are some amazing other organisations out there, but the targets with them are either directly only at pilots or they're broader organisation but more corporate. So Women in Aviation International is more about grassroots level aviators or people interested in aviation. So any area of the industry, from airfield firefighters through to checking desk, through to pilots, through to general aerodrome operators, UAV operators, anyone is welcome, and in any gender as well. So we're open to everybody. And so it's about improving that diversity. So there's lots of scholarships. There's both international scholarships that as Australians we can get access to. There's also a bunch of Australian scholarships, including just a cash amount for you to spend on something in aviation, or there might be actual flight lessons or an aircrew medical or courses you can go and do. And also we offer a mentoring program and all sorts of networking events and that sort of stuff, with the aim to support people either in the industry trying to improve and get into those management and leadership roles, people either just finishing study and trying to get into the industry and find out what it's all about, and also people who are looking at a changing career in their late 50s, or young girls who are just starting out or in high school who are not sure but are interested in aviation in some way. So in itself, Women in Aviation International and our little Australian chapter is diverse. So it sort of promotes its own self in the fact that we're a very diverse organisation made up of engineers, pilots, military, civil, airport operators, speakers, procurement officers, you name it, we've got it. And also just within the industry for men and women to join and be part of that support network.
Right. And this mentoring program, what sort of period does it go over for an individual? Like, is it months, years, weeks? I don't know.
So we just run a really short program because it's free for people to join and participate in. And we absolutely love all our amazing mentors who volunteer their time, which is the other thing. Everyone's a volunteer in our organisation. But it runs just for 6 months. So we just do a 6 months program, but a lot of the mentees keep in contact with the mentors. We run a 6 month program, and for them to focus on a part of their career or something they're trying to decide on. And we work with them on that, and we match them with a mentor that suits what they need, and particularly where they're going or where they'd like to go. And they run for 6 months, and then often they stay in contact. And we've been really fortunate, actually. A couple of our mentees have now become mentors, which is really cool sort of transition as we go around the circle. But Yeah, so it's just a short program, but we've had a lot of really nice engagement. And as I said, we're helping people that are, from 50 plus to from 15 to 50 plus. So there's a massive range of people that are in that group.
Yeah. So it sounds like there's quite a few success stories out there.
Yeah, there are, and you don't hear about them very often, I think.
Yeah.
We're very quiet. We're not very good at one thing when you come to gender stuff and stereotypes is that women aren't as good at blowing their own trumpet, if I can use that terminology. So we don't often promote ourselves. So this is a great opportunity for us to do that. And we have some really great, I'm always after new mentors. We have some great male mentors that are part of the group, and it's really nice that they're in it because they show us that there is a bunch of guys out there that are really keen to support diversity in the industry and try and improve it because of that.
Yeah, no, that's good. That's really good. Can you tell us a bit more about the organisation from an international point of view?
Yeah, so Women in Aviation International started in the States, and it runs different chapters in different countries and also within the US as well. They put on a massive conference every year, which is a huge, they actually, a lot of the airlines and stuff in the States go there and actually do job interviews and stuff while they're there. But they have a really amazing set of speakers. There's a lot of support in there. It's like a massive trade show as well. So there's a whole trade areas and stuff through the conference, which I was really fortunate to go to back in 2019 before everything all changed. But it's one of those things that is just about support, to know that there's people out there who have either been through, going through, or about to go through what you've experienced, and to have some feedback and have someone to talk to. And I said, there's lots of scholarship opportunities through them. And the beauty of it, because I talk about it as being at a grassroots kind of base level, is because it's not that expensive to join. So it's less than, I think it works out even on the exchange rates, less than $100 Australian a year to be part of both organisations. So the international one and the Australian one. So it's so the international one is basically the one that looks after a broader range of stuff and the bigger international side of it, and links all the chapters together. So it's like a hub that links all the chapters together. One thing they do organise and promote and provide us with a lot of assistance with is something called Girls in Aviation Day, which this year we're running in the Northern Territory. So it's being run up there. So that's for any girls school aged and around that space, or university students and stuff who want to be part of it, to go and have a look at what aviation can offer for a future. And
I know that in Australia, there's a lot of schools that offer these aviation pathways, and that's really great that they do. It's and it'd be great to see more ladies in the operation of aircraft. That's for sure.
I was going to say that's where I actually got my start. So my start was at Narrogin Senior High School in WA, where my then I think it was either metalwork or woodwork teacher, a guy called Rod Slater. He introduced me to aviation and brought the Kent Street program down to our school. So that was where I first was introduced to aviation in year 11 and 12. So I'm probably where I am today.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like a great organisation and one worthwhile joining and actually getting involved in. So I hope it grows here in Australia for you guys.
Yeah, we hope so too. And I think it's about just gradually growing the base network and getting more and more people involved. And so in the future we can actually support more people, no matter gender or background or whatever.
Natalee, it's been great having you on the podcast, and we were very lucky to have you for the forum, and we really appreciate your input there. And that was a great forum that you put forward with the risk management and that. And if anyone wants to see it, they can see it on our website at aviationsafetycommunity.com.au. Anyway, look, thank you so much, and thank you for your time today.
Thanks so much, Wim. I really enjoyed it, and good luck to everyone.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for listening to the Aviation Safety Community Podcast. Please don't forget to visit our website, www.aviationsafetycommunity.com.au.